In case that wasn't obvious already, Chainsaw Man Part 2 is one of the most frustrating series I have ever experienced. Admittedly, this isn't the first time it has happened, but Barham only made matters worse for me. Yes, hating him is intentional, but there are other reasons why I can't stand Barham. Till this day, I'm still baffled that he has a loud fanbase that treats him as the best in Part 2. Anyway, I already complained about it before, but the gist is Part 2 has bitten more than it could chew, and everything has deteriorated so badly that it almost feels like it's done by a completely different author. Many have expressed their dislike of Denji's later portrayal in Part 2, but at the same time, it feels like Part 2 has a huge disdain towards Denji. Really, the fundamental problem of Part 2 is that it lacks emotional weight. What were supposed to be emotional standoffs end up being more frustrating for one reason or another. Pochia's final speech to Denji comes across more as finally giving up on him, even if that's not the intent. By the time the ending rolled in, everyone had already been bummed out, either from the long-building frustration, or chapter 231 slapping them back into their senses. The biggest issue with the ending is that it renders everything meaningless with the reset. Pochia stating that Denji was happier before he joined public safety is entirely contradicted by Denji joining public safety post-reset anyway. It's clear that Fujimoto didn't push much thought into the ending because it raises more questions than anything. How did the road stay mostly the same without Pochia raising concepts? Why did Naruto replace Makima on the new timeline? Why is Asa with Baki when that's supposed to happen months later? And as I said before, the implication that Denji will not fare well now that he isn't Chainsaw Man anymore. It's also annoying that Part 2 does everything in its power to not revive Power and Naruto, but they just came back in the final chapter anyway, which doesn't feel earned. The only surprising part is that Yoru doesn't appear, despite being very biased towards her before. The worst part is, I actually expected a bittersweet ending, despite the fans were promised that it won't be the case. I imagine something like Denji somehow choosing to sacrifice himself so Asa can have a stable life, but this is somehow worse. It's an ending that's far less reassuring the more you think about it, and fans are baffled by whatever message it tries to present, teams and such. It's crazy that fans expected Denji to finally bounce right back, only for Fujimoto to subvert that because he's totally addicted to his desires and he can never be satisfied. It's entirely out of left field because at no point it's even portrayed negatively. So the takeaway is, it's best not to improve. Denji is better off chasing dreams instead of trying to achieve them because he will appreciate his shorter life more or something. I don't know. Honestly, Denji should have never been the protagonist again. If that's how Fujimoto viewed Denji and believed that was the best direction for him, it rubbed me the wrong way. And just about anyone else really. We want to see the best of Denji, but Fujimoto only wants to offer the worst of him. By that I mean making Denji a lousy parody of himself. In a way, Fujimoto succeeded in giving us the aftertaste of meaningless that he thought the Big Lebowski was about. And that was awful to just about everyone. Denji never develops at all, and the story keeps flip-flopping until the reset instead of moving forward with some portraits left unresolved. Who knew that turned out to be a terrible idea? Really, the only good thing from the ending is they got back to posting memes. But that's more of an indication of how bad Part 2 has gotten rather than maintaining quality of Part 1. Even companies poke fun of its ending. Well, this definitely isn't the first time an ending has received a ton of flack. The key difference is others still gave it all with their endings, whereas Fujimoto suddenly just gave up. This is unfortunately reflected by its final panel with Denji and Power mundanely walking away as they discuss what to eat, which may as well be any other panel. While burnout is a legitimate concern, he does have the leeway of Part 2 being on Gem Plus, and there are ways to prevent it, such as taking a hiatus or changing the release schedule. which makes it all the more disappointing it turned out the way it is. And just to show how bad it has fumbled, Chainsaw Folk went from mildly praising Fujimoto to being more critical to Part 2's issues, even after a month has passed. Fans also stopped using the binge reading defense because nothing can prepare you from being sucker punched by chapter 231. Even then, binge reading removes what little promises the final arc has. As harsh as it sounds, I don't think there are any aspects I appreciate from Fujimoto anymore because there's nothing I even enjoy from the later half of it. I already said it before, but after Part 2, I'm staying away from any of his subsequent works. But nonetheless, it still is disheartening to see Chainsaw Man has fumbled to that level because early Part 2 is actually good. And I don't actually mind a smaller scale story involving Asa because it feels like a right step in that direction. Asa was a refreshing contrast to Denji, and Denji actually does want to improve in early Part 2. It's a shame that his characterization got mangled afterwards. After it has ended, fans has been re-echoing what I thought of Part 2, such as Denji not getting to choose and sort of regretting reading Chainsaw Man. Even though I don't think highly of the fanbase when it's still ongoing because they have gotten insufferable, it did resonate with me. Alright, maybe I made it sound a bit too dramatic, but I have calmed down for the most part now. I mean, obviously I still have my complaints, but I'm nowhere near as angry as before. Well, that's enough negativity for now. It's time for me to move on from Chainsaw Man. To end on a more positive note, maybe one day we could see a better official conclusion for Denji, just like with Rebuild of Evangelion or Seed Freedom. But for now, the best course is to ignore most of Part 2 and appreciate the highlights of Chainsaw Man. Or just start picking up another series